Good morning. Welcome to our Board of Supervisors meeting for October, what is today? 15th?
20th.
19th, 20th? October 20th? They're all kind of running together right about now. Could you please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, have any board announcements? Anybody would like to make an announcement? Okay. So could I have public comments then? Any item of interest to the public that is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the board and is not posted on a consent or regular agendas may be addressed during the public comment period. California law prohibits the board from taking action on any matter which is not posted on the agenda unless it is determined to be an emergency by the Board of Supervisors. If public comment is completed before the 30-minute allotted time period, the board may immediately move to the consent agenda. If public comment is not completed during the allotted time period, it will be continued at the conclusion of the regular agenda in order to provide an opportunity for the remainder of the comments to be heard. Public comments, please.
Yeah, Clyde from Valley Springs. I gave you all one of these here. I don't know if you've seen it yet or not. But anyway, I was at the courthouse the other day and I pulled this up, and it's the developer at Olive Orchard Road is a dissolved corporation. I don't know if you people know that or not. But the main thing I was wanting to talk was a gentleman from that same organization here last week, and he pointed out that no one that lived up there responded or anything towards the amendment they was wanting to get to his permit. Well, so I went to the planning department because I thought that was interesting. And then I found out none of them were notified that this was being done. And they keep a record of people they noticed that they notified. So I thought that was interesting that they were saying that no one responded, but of course the planning department was relying on the developer to give the names of to them on who purchased the property up there, and he forgot to do that apparently. Thank you.
No, sir. This is a construction defect lawsuit. What does that have to do with the issue?
Well,
that you
what
were
it has to
talking
do
about?
is, I pointed it right there, it's just that the...
No, it says on the back, construction defect.
You asked me a question, sir. I'm trying to explain it to you.
Okay.
The reason I gave this to you is just to bring to your attention, which if you'll notice I underlined it and marked it, it's a dissolved corporation. And we've been dealing, and I just bring to your attention that this corporation is dissolved that we've been dealing with.
Thank you.
I don't know if that has anything to do with it. But
Obviously.
that's the reason it's underlined and marked.
Thank you.
Joe Kelly from the unrepresented area of District 1. The Board of Supervisors, Calaveras County, December 20, 2004, Resolution 04-361. A resolution approving tentative subdivision tract map 2003-157. There are the necessary statements regarding Planning Commission activities and Planning Commission recommendations. The Board of Supervisors entered into a legally binding contract with CRV Enterprises, Inc., based on findings and conditions, including were Planning Department Conditions 6 and 7 regarding Olive Orchard Road off-site improvements. The Subdivision Map Act, Section 66473.5, requires subdivisions, including design and improvement, to be consistent with the general plan. The issue is addressed extensively. There is a 2003-157 zoning amendment and tentative subdivision tract map for CRV Enterprises, Inc., an LLC, mitigation measures and monitoring program. It was passed. There is no doubt a contract was created, but with whom? CRV Enterprises? A subsequent resolution, 07125, June 6, 2007, authorizing execution of the subdivision agreement and approving the final map for Olive Orchard Estates, tract 2003-157, as in Resolution 04361. Resolution 07125 disclosed the 1.044 $1,044,735,000 security for the road improvements. That is down from almost $1.25 million. Signed and sealed documents, all is well, except the agreement signed by the chairman of the Board of Supervisors and CRV Enterprises, Inc., C. Ryan Voorhees, paragraph 10, assignments. This contract shall not be assignable by subdivider without the written consent of the county. Was the contract violated by CRV Enterprises? 1. The preliminary public report standard subdivision states, name of applicant, Valley Springs Gold Creek, Inc., a California corporation. Tract map and number, Olive Orchard Estates, Units 1 and 2. Advertised name, Olive Orchard. Department of Real Estate, file number 119295SA SOO. Issue date September 8, 2006. Expiration June 1st, 2007. 2. Final subdivision public report standard in the matter of the application, Old Golden Oaks, LLC, a California limited liability company, and Valley Springs Gold Creek, Inc., a California corporation, file 119295SA FOO, issued August 8, 2007, expires August 7, 2012, tract 2003-157, Olive Orchard Estates, Units 1 and 2, a.k.a. Olive Orchard Estates. 3. Final subdivision public report standard. In the matter of Golden Oaks, LLC, a California limited liability company, and Valley Springs Gold Creek, Inc., a California corporation, file 119295SA A101, issued August 8, 2007, amended and renewed October 20, 2014, expires October 19, 2019. Where, this is the questions, folks, where is the paragraph 10 assignments approval documents by the county for assignment from CRV Enterprises to Old Golden Oaks, LLC, and Valley Springs Gold Creek, Inc., as disclosed in the file 119295SA SOO, Department of Real Estate Subdivisions, file 119295SA FOO, Department of Real Estate of State of California, and file 119295SA A101, Bureau of Real Estate of the State of California. Somewhere somebody got messed up. That's why the people weren't notified up there. None of the public reports disclosed the issue of contractual off-site improvements. Why weren't they disclosed? It should have been. The last interesting piece of information, the California Secretary of State search results for CRV Enterprises entity C201-2244, date file 5/29/97, status, dissolved. Entity name, CRV Enterprises, agent for Inc., agent for service process, C. Ryan Voorhees. The United States Department of Interior has been notified as to the endangered species document submission not being included in the county's processing. The California Department of Fish and Wildlife have been given a copy of the Department of Interior's letter. The Planning Department now has copies of the 3 public reports and the dissolution search results of CRV Enterprises.
Thank you, Mr.
Supervisor Oliveira, would you
Thank you,
like to
Mr. Kelly.
reconsider bringing
Mr.
this
Kelly.
issue back to the Board of Supervisors based on this
Mr.
information,
Kelly, you
please?
need to pay
I understand what he's doing, sir.
Thank
and
you very
files,
much.
You people disregard what we have to say and don't give a damn.
Okay.
And
Mr.
until you
Kelly.
get your stuff together,
Okay,
there's
Mr.
going to
Kelly.
be...
Have a seat,
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank
Are you going to answer the question, sir?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. All right. Any other public comments?
Lisa Mutertees. I just went to a meeting last night for the White Pines Park Committee in Arnold, and they have been working on a lease agreement for between CCWD and our county. This has been going on for several months, and they are getting in a frustrated mode because they have a grant that required them to have a 10-year agreement between the county to receive that grant for the playground equipment. So they could not be here today. The president actually broke her hip, so she's still healing, and they had asked that I please bring it to your attention, that we'd like to see that lease progress. We know that CCWD and our county has met and discussed it, but the fire hit. They're not unsympathetic to the fire victims, but they also want to be able to continue on with the business that they're trying to attend to. So they would like to request that that please be addressed at some point in the future soon, because it's been going on for about 8 months. Thank you.
Hi, Michael Krilovich from Paloma. I don't know if this would, I was going to talk about what Calaveras Grown's doing with, so would I say it now or?
This is great. You can do it at our update if you'd like, or you can do it now too.
Okay, I'll just do it now.
Wait, it's part of, it's not a part of our plan, but it is what they're doing for the recovery. You get more time, I think.
If it's an item that's before the board, then it would happen during the one item. If they are outside of the county and they want to
Yeah.
speak to the board, it
Wait,
can-
go ahead.
Just go ahead.
If it's regarding the update of the Butte fire,
Sorry.
I would recommend that it be done during the update number one item rather
Yeah, I
than during
think
public
that's-
comment.
We wanna
It
hear
does
what you
allow
gotta
for
say.
additional time to actually give a
Perfect. I just
thorough
wanna make sure.
analysis or a thorough update.
Oh, yeah, well, you're gonna get time.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, any other public comments?
Good morning, Bill McManus, the Calaveras Project. First of all, I'd like to thank our County Council, Megan Stedfeld, for arranging for the update from RCRC at the last meeting. It was very informative. I couldn't help but hear something along the line that our County Council was in line to succeed somebody or maybe going someplace. If that's true, I wish you good luck and good fortune. And I don't blame you for taking a better job. Along those lines, with AB 266, Mr. Smith from RCRC made it very clear on many occasions that there is an opt-out provision from 266 for cities and counties, all jurisdictions in California. I've always encouraged the county to consider that opt-out option or choice, especially in light of what we have going on in the county with the fire, general plan, asphalt plant, Olive Road. I mean, the list goes on and on. And why the county would want to go down the AB 266 rabbit hole right now is a little beyond me. I don't know that this county is ready to take on something like that is so involved with so many state agencies, enforcement. We have to increase manpower and expertise in this county to even try to deal with it. I would remind this board that we have 2 illegal marijuana dispensaries in Valley Springs that have been operating for years. They have been the subject of lawsuits from Calaveras County against them. They have been before the Planning Commission to have their permit applications heard and denied. Upon appeal, both of them lost at the Board of Supervisors, and their permits were denied. And yet, to this day, they are still operating without any permits, without any supervision, and that's 2 small shops in Valley Springs. When you take on AB 266 and have to start dealing with 17 different types of license holders and all of the interaction between them, without being able to deal effectively on the backside and actually enforce 266, I would encourage you to consider the opt-out solution. Give us a couple years to get through the Butte fire, some other things, elections, everything else. You can always go down the hole later if you want. But for right now, you may want to consider sitting back and see how 266 shakes out for other counties around the state before you not only touch but embrace tar bunny.
Thank you. Okay, any other public comments, please? Huh? Okay. So we'll move on to our regular agenda. Admin?
Good morning, Brian Moss, County Administration. This item before you today is provided for an update for the Board of Supervisors, specifically really from your task force members that we talked about last week as to what's being done in the recovery process for the Butte incident. In addition to that, what you're going to be seeing on a weekly basis, and I sent out a kind of a rough draft last night to the board, is something called EEIs, or Essential Elements of Information. We are working on a format that you're going to see that you'll become familiar with as soon as it's developed. Again, yesterday was the first day we actually met down at the area field office with FEMA and Cal OES to develop this process to keep the board informed. And so today, what you will be hearing from our Public Works Department, Environmental Health, and as well as Building and others. So County Council is also included in that as well. Something else I'd like to share with the board before we go on, and that is we received an email yesterday from the Small Business Administration, people that are working just on the other side of that wall there. And as of yesterday, they'd received 127 disaster loan applications and from individuals and businesses, and 120 home loan and 7 business loan applications. They've approved 19 home loans for a total of $2.6 million in Calaveras County as of yesterday morning. And the disaster recovery centers in San Andreas, Mountain Ranch, and Railroad Flat have seen more than 1,100 visitors since they opened. So they also are expecting to increase, see those numbers increase, especially on the approval end of it, as they move along. So I just wanted to let the board know that that's something that's working very, very well, and we're very happy about that. So again, you'll be seeing EEIs come to you. Generally, you will be receiving them on a Monday afternoon or Monday evening. So with that, I'm going to turn this over to the department heads who'd like to give their specific updates. So thank you. Yes, sir.
Question, sir.
Yes, sir.
If we should have questions, do we contact your department or do we contact our PIO?
Depending on what the question is, I know if our PIO has something that they've sent out and you have an inquiry, it's certainly fine to contact them. I would recommend that you contact our office, either Mary Rose or myself, and we can certainly pass that on.
So this report is generated by your office?
It is actually generated down at the area field office. Okay. That's actually where it's generated. So it's generated by your team leaders.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Brian, maybe you would like to introduce the PIO since she's sitting here in the audience.
Oh, yes. Sharon Torrance. We brought Sharon back as extra hire. She was the PIO for CAL FIRE for many, many, many years. As a matter of fact, this is all TMI, I understand, but I have a photograph from the 2001 Darby fire where several of us are in there, including myself and Sharon. So I had actually dark hair and actually had hair in those days. Anyway, so thank you for being here, Sharon. I'll turn it over to the department heads.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Jeff?
Unwrapping my brain here. Jeff Krovitz, Public Works Department, Calaveras County. Fire started September 10th, was deemed contained on October 1st. It burned over 72,000 acres, 12,000 of which was BLM land, 60,000 or so of which was private lands. About 5% of the fire occurred in Amador County on the north side of the South Fork of the McCollum River. Immediately following the fire, and actually during the last few days of the suppression efforts, a post-fire emergency watershed response team was deployed to determine burn severity throughout the fire, to determine risk levels in terms of sediment flows, debris flows, and subsequent rainstorms, and also to look for and identify potential threats to life, property, and infrastructure within the burn area. That report was completed on October 12th and distributed after being vetted. The report contains information on areas that we need to keep a very close eye on in terms of potential mud, debris, and flood flows. And it also identified 26 specific areas of potential threat to life, property, infrastructure. Together, CAL FIRE, various departments at the county, and NRCS have taken on the task of mitigating some of those areas that we believe we can help. Specifically, there are 4 to 5 structures that are potentially in future harm's way that we are working with NRCS for mitigation, for prevention of further damage to these structures in flooding, because they're still potentially habitable. And if they're not habitable, we will be looking to clean them up in advance of a potential flood coming through that structure. The bigger picture of this report, of course, is that it gives us a basis for identifying what we would do in second and third and fourth phases of fire response. The second phase of fire response really concerns many of our resource agencies, such as State Fish and Wildlife Service, together with CAL FIRE, to start looking at our surface waters and what their risk levels are, and then making recommendations concerning how to mitigate or protect those resources within the fire areas. I'll get back to this in just a bit. I'd like to talk a little bit about public infrastructure. We have 81 miles of county roads that are within the burn area. We took on a significant amount of damage to those roads. We lost signs. We lost some areas of pavement. Of course, we had some culvert damage, and we have the potential for relatively small rainstorms to trigger mud and debris flows that will plug culverts, as happened to us on Saturday with the small amount of rain that we received. So my county crews have been working approximately 80 to 85% of their resource allocated time on fire recovery efforts to keep the roads open, removing hazard trees that have a potential to fall into or onto the roadways, and to clean and protect culvert inlets, and then, of course, respond to the small debris flows that we've had on county roads due to the relatively early and small rain events that we've had. These efforts will continue. Public Works has gone out and summarized and categorized initial assessments of damage to county roads, put approximate numbers to those using Caltrans data, and then filed a report with Caltrans to receive funding in the emergency recovery program that is sponsored by the Federal Highway Administration. I have submitted damages in excess of $8 million to them, and they are processing that, and we are working forward through that ER program for repairs and recovery of damage to county roads. In addition, through Cal OES and FEMA, we have now been notified that we are available to receive public assistance funding that can also be deployed towards roads and public infrastructure, and we will be receiving our initial briefing on that on the 28th of this month in October. There are additional funds.
Excuse me, Jeff?
Yes.
You said that you were just notified about some funding available for public assistance from Cal OES and FEMA?
Yes.
And so you guys are going to have a meeting on the 28th about what that is?
Yeah, I'm actually continuing to meet with these people several times a week to get the county in as good a position as we can possibly be in doing as much advance work as we can in advance of the meeting on the 28th. So at the meeting on the 28th, I can turn in our assistance request forms, and I've got worksheets for potential projects for funding. So we're doing everything that we can to get in front of that funding stream.
Okay. So I know that you've been interested in and pushing for the erosion control and the damage and all of that. Ever since actually the first day that this fire started, I know you've been doing that. So, I mean, is there any particular reason why we're delayed to now for this?
I wouldn't call it delayed. I would say that we are victims of the funding and the programmatic process that occurs in these events. And so nothing really starts until after suppression activities have been completed. Immediately following suppression activities, various agencies, depending on ownership of land, whether it's federal land by Forest Service, federal land by BLM, or whether it's state responsibility area, that would be the private lands within this fire, have their own tasks that they must do. The post-watershed emergency response team report is one of those. There is a report that I am expecting to see tomorrow or Friday from BLM on what they are going to be deploying on their 12,000 acres of land. And I must use the data out of those reports to then justify my request for assistance. The Butte Fire is a little bit unique in California because it's one of the first fires that has a majority of the lands burned as private lands as opposed to public lands. And historically, there haven't been funding streams for emergency response or mitigation for potential mudslides as a result of a fire burn area, unless we document it carefully in advance. So for example, the emergency response program through federal highways on county roads will allow me to repair immediate damage from the fire. I cannot deploy preventative mitigation measures from what I think is going to happen. And so what I must do is document where I anticipate I'm going to take damage, photograph it, so as soon as the damage occurs, I can then have a direct nexus to that funding stream to allow me to recover from that specific location.
Okay.
So it's a matter of us learning how we fit within funding streams and current programs.
It's, I was in a meeting on Friday that said, or at least I heard, that there was a mitigation process for future preventative mitigation efforts.
And that is true. There are two programs that I know of right now. One of them is through the county's local hazard mitigation plan that we are in the process of doing final edits on and getting it in front of the board for approval. It has been conditionally approved by FEMA and Cal OES. That allows us to go and tap into emergency funding. So many of the projects that I see, the larger projects, watershed projects that you're speaking of, will become a part of the emergency mitigation program so that we can then get hazard mitigation, ERHM, emergency response hazard mitigation funding to support those larger programs on private lands. The second funding stream for this is a brand new program that came to the county, and I had a meeting on that last Thursday, which is also a hazard mitigation funding program through FEMA. It has certain restrictions on it. It is a $441,000 grant with a $147,000 match. The match can be made in kind through donations, through labor, through volunteers. And so I am also in the process of putting together that application that I think should be accepted, and then we can then begin deploying those monies out. And that is another vehicle that I can use on private lands with the nexus from the reports that have been generated to mitigate hazards that we think are coming.
Okay, so, how in the heck do you do all this stuff?
I'm not sure.
That's what I want to know. I mean,
Okay.
in my mind, you should have some help.
Help is on the way. I've had help. I asked for immediate mutual aid. I've had a number of engineers come into the county to help me for a week at a time. I've given each one of them discrete assignments related to the fires, and they've been completing those assignments before they disappear. In the process now of negotiating a longer-term aid, I've made a request through Caltrans to give me people that can help manage and execute the federal highway emergency recovery program, as well as public assistance, because they are experienced in this and they know which forms to fill out, which acronyms to use, and they also know how to repair the damage that we've already identified. So that will be a large help to me. I have a conference call, I hope, today on that. And so it just takes a little bit of time to put the structures in place and the people in place to be able to recover from an event this size. I mean, we are talking about 117 miles of burned area, which is more than a tenth of the county.
So why don't you just go ahead and finish, and then I'll ask all my questions at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
I've also, early on, been identified as the task lead for the watershed recovery. In the watershed recovery, I've broken it up into areas of major concern, so we can hopefully identify teams that will respond to each of these areas. The areas are as follows: reservoirs, I have New Hogan in harm's way, and I also have Part E in the way. Part E is fed by the North Fork of the McCollumney, and New Hogan, of course, fed by the Middle and North Fork of the Calaveras River. I also have major drainages that are part of those water systems and that are outside of those water systems. Major drainages such as Jesus Maria Creek, Salamander Creek, Murray Creek, and even the small drainage along Mountain Ranch Road coming. It misses the area of San Andreas, but it's still at risk. I've got local drainages, which would be much smaller, potentially ephemeral or seasonal creeks that are in harm's way, and those also may or may not include, depending on where they're located, some of the privately dammed ponds on private lands. Obviously, the watershed is part of our road systems that feed to those road systems, especially those roads that are running at the bottom of drainages. And then, of course, the private land mitigation. And that will fall into several categories, including how do we handle and treat burned trees, how do we mitigate lost forest, how do we essentially repopulate the watershed for protection against future flows. So while those are areas under my purview, it's obvious that it's a much larger task than one person or even a team of 5 can be expected to do. So I am continuing to reach out to populate and staff that particular watershed task force. And tomorrow afternoon, I will be in Sacramento meeting with the Butte and Valley Fire larger watershed task force to see how I can fit into their program as well. And that would make my efforts much easier. Okay? The third area of concern from my perspective is that we know that rain is coming. The season has already demonstrated early and often, and there are predictions of higher than normal rainfall events coming to the county. Those necessarily will trigger debris flows, mudslides, and a fairly dangerous situation. As a result, I am also encouraging the formation through the SO, the county OES response, so that we can plan for the emergency and we can then also deploy to recover from the emergency. Things that are as simple as the deployment of sand and gravel bagging stations throughout the county, where we can provide facilities that residents can come and get their sand and gravel bags depending on what they want to deploy, as well as reverse 911 call-outs to people who are still populating the burned areas, and the ability to quickly respond to flood areas that we know. I'm working with BLM and the National Weather Service to deploy additional rain gauges outside of the burn area that will give us earlier and more complete information so that our predictions will be more accurate, so that we can be ready for this event. And I'm pretty sure that I've got good support from the Sheriff's Department and OES on this effort, and we will run this right up the flagpole and keep that piece moving.
Question, sir. We were aware of our weekend downpour. Our cleanup operations, are they considered construction sites?
Well, I'm not sure where you're going with this, but no, that's considered either a response or an operations and maintenance.
Okay. Are we subject to state water quality control regulations?
not for that type of response per se, but much of the work that we're going to be doing in terms of road recovery and much of the work that is going to be done on private lands would be considered construction. So that comes in several flavors. The work being done through environmental management for the cleanup of burned debris buildings and stabilization is subject to stormwater and water quality control rules, but the Regional Water Quality Control Board that the Central Valley, which is the enforcement board for Calaveras County, has reduced the requirements within Calaveras County and within the burn area so that all construction work related to the fire is associated with what's called a risk level 1 plan. So it does require the filing of a notice of intent. It requires the filing of a stormwater pollution prevention plan with the State Regional Water Quality Control Board. It is associated with a $200 fee, but the fact that everything has been reduced to a risk level 1, which is the lowest level risk, certainly foreshortens and reduces the cost and the oversight required for this type of construction-related work within the fire, be it done by private or public agencies.
So we're not subject to SWEPs.
We are subject,
to SWEPs.
well, it
We
actually,
can't be fined or penalized
that's correct.
within our level.
That's
level,
correct.
Risk level.
And we will not be responsible for measurements, for pH or turbidity measurements. We will not be responsible for putting out activated treatment systems. So these are the things that drive the cost of construction mitigation projects up. So it hopefully will smooth and make it easier for us to move ahead with everything that we can do.
Thank you.
One of the things that Jeff hasn't mentioned is that over the weekend I signed a contract with the California Conservation Corps to bring in crews to assist him with his efforts. And I believe the first crews were on site yesterday, Jeff?
Yep, second crew, I think has either arrived or will be arriving within the hour, and the third crew will be arriving on Wednesday. The first two crews I've deployed to our county road crews within the fire burn area, and yesterday they were out on Jesus Maria and some other areas. They were focusing on cleaning out culverts, protecting inlets of culverts, removing brush that are potential hazards along the roadways. The crew that is being deployed on Wednesday, I have assigned to East Bay Mud. East Bay Mud I've been working with them on stabilization efforts in the Mokelumne Basin on the Calaveras side. They're also reaching across to Amador County to do some mitigation efforts on the Amador side. And so I've assigned to them that crew of CCC. And we are looking for places to house these crews. The northern CCC crew with East Bay Mud is going to house at Comanche, where they have housed in the past. They will be working 14-day straight shifts. And then the two crews assigned to, let's just call it the Mountain Ranch area, or the southern side of the burn, they'll be spending the next several nights at the community center in Mountain Ranch. However, we will be losing those showers and those laundry facilities, so we're currently looking for another place for them to land. And I will reassess with CCC dispatch in about 10 days to see if we want to include the next 14 and the next 14 and the next 14.
Good job.
So why are we losing facilities there?
I'm not certain why it was. I don't know how the showers and laundry facilities were deployed. I think it was part of a volunteer charity organization that did that, but I'm not positive. We're working on it now. Thank you for the reminder.
All right, so I'm just trying to figure out, do you sleep very much?
I have to. If I don't, I won't be effective the next day.
Yeah, well, all right. So from what I see, the need is, you need some right-hand people in each of these categories to help you run these processes.
That's correct.
because I don't know how you actually put all this stuff together.
Tennis shoes.
Running hard. So, thank you for what you're doing. This is huge tasks going on here. Any other comments from the board here?
Yeah, I got some. All right.
Ben, you go first.
Okay.
Chris, Supervisor Wright, you're the best dressed. Go for it.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I just want to say thanks for, all the work you're doing. It's an enormous task, but I'm sure you're up for the challenge in the next 10 years.
And your crews. I know they're working hard too.
I do have a question regarding first of all, the October 12th report. Did you send us a copy of that and I just missed it, or can I get a copy of it?
You can get a copy. It's a fairly large file. And so right now, I do have it on the county website.
Okay.
If you'd like a copy of it, we can either make you a hard copy or we can get it to you through the county FTP site. Right now, GIS has it.
Okay.
I moved it up to them and notified them of that yesterday.
Physical copy is great.
Okay.
I mean, whatever's easiest for you.
At the end of the meeting, if you stop by Public Works, we'll have some copies for you.
Cool, thanks. And then one of the big things that I get, and I forwarded you a couple of those emails, is just individual landowners wanting to know, what to do. And so I'm just wondering how you're working with kind of the private land mitigation effort and how your offices are coordinating with that. Because I know that, like Calaveras Grown has been out there, and I know different organizations like NRCS, as well as others. I'm just wondering, should I, when people ask, should I just say, I call Mike Kriletich at Calaveras Grown, or should I say, contact you, or should I just go out there and do the work myself?
I would choose the latter. No, I'm kidding. Let me give you a little bit of an idea of the facets on public land and public watershed restoration that affects private landowners. And this is kind of the message that I've been delivering as people have been calling me or I've been going to various meetings, is that there is an order to things in terms of the way to go after recovery from a fire. And the first thing we've got to protect is life, human life. And to do that, the landowners know their land. They know where the mudslides and the flows are going to come because they've lived there and they've lived it before. If you had water flowing surface after a rainstorm, you're going to have mud flowing in that same gully after the rainstorm, and it will scour and it will be rolling large rocks, and it could very well be moving trees. So they know to stay away from that. But in terms of protecting life on the land, we have trees that are dead, standing dead. We're competing against 2 years of harvesting out of federal lands on the rim fire. So there is not a large market or a large value for these burned trees. There is some. And so I've been making available to them information that has been published by local CAL FIRE in terms of emergency response areas, what can be done, which is an emergency harvesting plan. So any type of harvesting that would be timber for sale, for barter, for trade, would be subject to this program. It's a very short, foreshortened process. And in the outline that's on the CAL FIRE website and is also linked to the Public Works website is the instructions for how to go about that, including a list of registered professional foresters that can run the private ownership through that, as well as logging companies that have been recognized as having done good work through CAL FIRE. And so that handout becomes very important. I also counsel private property owners that if there is some interest in the timber, that's a good way to dispose of it. Second alternative of it for disposal is to use it for a preventative measure for mudslides on the land by following the trees perpendicular to the steep hillsides, keying them into other dead trees so that they maintain their position, and potentially deploying straw wattles or some sort of pine wattles on the upstream side to start to begin trapping sediment while allowing water to flow through. All this is helped by gentle rains. All this will be exacerbated in the worst way by hard rains. And hard rains, we're not even talking about a lot. We're talking about 1/10 of an inch in an hour. Will be more than enough to cause migration and of soil. So the first thing is to identify those trees that are definitely dead and have a potential for falling. If they've been severely burned, they should come down. If they've only been burned and killed and it looks like they can stand 5 or 6 years, then occasionally leaving those for habitat is a very good thing. They do attract all kinds of wildlife, and the more wildlife we can attract back into the burn area, the better we're going to have distribution of seed. Okay? The next phase for private landowners, of course, is to stabilize those steepest soil areas. So I have got requests that I'm working on through the field office in Sacramento on the Valley Burns, through their GIS division, to take the results of this report, where they have identified the most severely and moderately burned areas in the fire, overlaying those with the steepest slopes, overlaying those with the distribution into surface waters of concern, creeks, streams, and rivers. And then when they return that GIS layer to me, I will then populate my outreach to private property owners as my highest priority private land areas for deployment of some of these hazard mitigation and hazard mitigation grant funds, working with the property owners.
Direct outreach at that point?
It's going to have to be direct outreach at that point, and that is my intent.
That's a really good idea.
I thought it was. We'll see if they buy
Yeah,
it.
I mean, it seems really challenging logistically and as far as what Cliff was saying, time-wise, but, you know.
Time-wise and
Very important.
Time, well, not just time, though, it's.
Time-wise and logistically wise, using GIS as a tool, since that's how the reports have been built, and that's exactly what BLM and CAL FIRE have done on their 2 reports. It's just a matter of me getting those areas identified that, those layers of concern for me, and then overlaying those with my land net, my property owners, and then going out and reaching, because that's what we have to do.
Well,
I have yet to talk to a property owner that wouldn't like help.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay?
So, are you doing this yourself, or do you got people doing that for you? That's what I thought,
A
so.
little of, I'm getting a little bit of help, but I'm getting there.
So I did have just a follow-up on that. The coordination aspect of it with all the different agencies, there was that one meeting I attended at the sheriff's office a couple of weeks ago, and I guess there's another one that happened, or maybe it didn't happen. I'm not sure. How's that proceeding forward with all the different groups and agencies, but then also the NGOs out there. So there's is there a meeting happening once a month, once a week, never?
I had the initial meeting of those agencies
Yeah.
that I had reached out to. And there were definitely positive outcomes from that. Each of those agencies are continuing to do their mission tasks, but they're also doing their mission task having contacts with other people that are related to their mission. So for example, BLM reached out to NOAA. I'm getting more rain gauges. Those are going to be deployed. So that helps with the emergency operations, emergency response. And so that piece is moving. It's a question of responding to immediate needs where immediate needs can be responded to, and then also building the infrastructure for the long-term deployment and long-term response. So one can't get necessarily a higher priority than another. It's a matter of continuing to ask, continuing to receive, continuing to deploy. I don't anticipate I have to run at this pace for another 2 or 3 years. It just wouldn't happen. But I do think that within the space of another 2 to 3 weeks, these teams will be built, they will be deployed, and they will be reporting. Okay. So in terms of when the next meeting for the Watershed Coordination Group is, I'm feeling like it's a little bit early for me to recall that until I find out what the larger group is doing and how they're going to fit into our needs.
And then can you include at least Calaveras Grown, I know, is one, and maybe Mike knows of others that are on the ground. So, and maybe you already are all talking. I just want to make sure that, everybody's on the same page as far as, what techniques are best management practices and all the other coordination that needs to go on is happening, at least attempt to do that.
Okay, so to that subject, I've been working very closely with NRCS, both the Fresno offices and the Jackson office. They've got their website, and I've got a link on Public Works directly to a whole list of treatments and a whole list of instructions to private landowners on what they can do for deployment of what we call BMPs, which are best management practices. And they specifically relate to stormwater and debris flows, mud flows, that kind of stuff. There is also a workshop scheduled for Town Hall on October 28th from 9 to 4, and that will be staffed by a number of interested agencies. I'm hoping that Calaveras Grown is invited. Hoping that there's a group, a Calaveras Amador Census Group, that I'm going to see them in the morning. And they are doing some things on the Amador side as well as the Calaveras side. And I'm hoping that we can also get Calaveras Grown. Jason and I are scheduled to have a meeting with them this week to let them know what we are doing, to hear what they're doing, and so that we can coordinate. It makes it more difficult for me to coordinate with state and federal agencies when I have volunteer organizations together. It's much easier for me to essentially do them separately and let me be the middleman.
However you want to, whatever's the most efficient way, I just want to make sure that there's, that communication that's happening is, from my standpoint.
Yeah. So
It sounds like there is, so that's great.
yeah, I'm also working very closely with the water districts, major water districts that are impacted by this, and they've been helping and giving me areas that I can use up in the burn area, land that I can use for potential sandbag gravel stations, deployment for debris cleanup crews. Jason doesn't know about this yet, but he will soon. As well as places to store donations. We've already to date received a truckload of straw wattles and 1,000 bales of rice straw that are being deployed both by county crews and by East Bay mud crews, utilizing some of the CCC people. So yeah, there's a lot of moving parts, and the important thing is to keep them all going in a reasonable direction and not waste time attempting to deploy resources and donations in an area that may either do no good or get wiped out in a very small event. Okay? So we are in a form of triage in terms of our watershed. And then there are the long-term issues that are coming. We've got immediate issues, which to me is the next 3 weeks. Then I've got longer-term issues, which is the rest of the winter and the spring. And then whatever work I can do before the next winter. And then we have the long-term issues, which are how do we manage what will grow back? How do we prevent this type of event in other areas of our county, right? Mm-hmm. So got to keep our eyes on all the balls and keep working on all of them in any way, shape, or form that we can.
Okay. Thank you.
You talked about, I heard you talk before about aircraft seating.
Aerial seating?
Yeah. I know that before the rain, there was resistance to that because there was no moisture in the ground, but the days are getting shorter, a little more moisture in the ground. Is that a possibility now, do you think?
It's always been a possibility on private lands. The question is, how is it paid? And the other thing to consider is that the lands in the fire, to me, fall into several categories. They fall into a forest category, a rangeland category, a chaparral category, and an oak woodland category. And what might be appropriate aerially for one area may not be appropriate for the other area. So it's important to have proper deployment of seed mixes, and I have seen it work. Sometimes you do a lot of aerial seeding, which is expensive, and feed a lot of birds. But there's all kinds of techniques that are out there. Again, until I have certainty of qualifying programs that will be funded, it's very difficult for me to deploy my staff on this. And that's why I've been basically the one carrying the ball.
Okay. All right, so would that be something that we could maybe get somebody involved in to help you with that? You think you're interested in that still, or?
Yeah, I definitely am interested in that, especially in the areas that are otherwise very, very difficult to get anything done in. But the reality is that we really need to take on trees first before we can get into seeding, mulching, cover, and that kind of stuff. Other techniques that I have been mentioning to some of the ranchers who have livestock on their parcels is that they do get erosion control seed mix, deploy that, and then deploy feed, because they have to pay for the feed anyway, spread it out into various areas, especially the steeper areas, and allow the livestock to track the straw into the ground and push the ash in and kind of mix it in and get that seed into the soil. That does a lot in terms of stabilization, and you're using the livestock as they're eating and attracting them to these areas. Of course, before you can do that, you want to make sure you're not going to fall a hazard tree on your livestock. So that's why this hazard tree program is fairly important as an early, quick deployment.
Yeah, well, you know, I've seen a lot of areas where there's no trees left, so, and pretty steep areas. Jesus Maria is a good example of that in a lot of those places, so sure would like to see some of that stuff.
Yeah, and Jesus Maria, I mean, the way, and I can't predict the weather. I can only assume that it's going to be similar to 2010, given what NOAA is predicting and knowing how this season has already started. But I know that already from the slides, the small little debris flows that I got in the last two events, that we're going to see events that are going to be closing roads, either temporarily or long-term, specifically in areas of Whiskey Slide, East and West Murray Creeks, Baker Riley, and especially Jesus Maria and Haver. That intersection of Jesus Maria and Haver Road, I don't think that there's any way that's going to survive this winter.
Okay. Do we have a pretty good emergency system that for employment for you know, evacuations and communications?
It's starting, but it's not where it needs to be. We have another 3 weeks or so to get that in place, I think.
Unless we get one of those big clouds that come over, right?
So far, the long-term forecast the near-term forecast looks okay.
All right. That's about all I have. Anybody else?
Mm-hmm. No, just thank you and your staff. I know you've been working hard. Please know that we understand that and appreciate everybody and what they've been doing.
Thank you.
I share that same thought, Jim.
So I ditto that, and Chris asked some of my questions as well, but I had a few more that I wanted to address. When you mentioned all the different folks that you were meeting with and coming together with, you had mentioned East Bay Mud as being one of your partners in this meeting in regards to watershed. Are the local water agencies involved with you as well?
Yes, they are, and I'm letting the local water agencies reach out to other water agencies. So East Stockton Municipal, which takes their water out of New Hogan, East Bay Mud that takes their water out of Pardee, they're working either directly with me or through CCWD.
Okay, so CCWD and CPUD are
Yep.
part of that process?
And they are all part of the process. They've been coming to these meetings, and we're working. They're very concerned with the watershed.
Right. When you mentioned community partners in regards to erosion control and even the watershed, has the tribe reached out to you at all in regards to being a part of this process?
Who or what?
The tribes.
The tribes. We fortunately had a meeting with the tribes in the burn area right after, and you were there for looking at some of our highway bridge program, bridge replacement projects. We did a field review. Prior to the field review, I went over with the tribes, the burn area, the severities, the flows, and then I've provided that contact to Cal Recycle to OES and FEMA for cultural resource site protection. The tribes had already reached out for cultural sites that they know were endangered along Highway 26 and got those protected. So yes, they are they have a seat at the table, and their contact has been given to our team.
Yeah, thank you.
Great.
Along those lines too, when you talked about community resources, so I was happy to hear that you have a follow-up meeting with Calaveras Grown and with Jason and being a community. I know Calaveras Grown would like to be a partner in some way in offering a lot of resources. I knew they're kind of the folks with boots on the ground currently, and I think there's a potential for some good future partnerships there with that organization and perhaps some others. I know in the Bern area, it's a great concern in regards to our road system and watershed and the potentials of our storms as we look forward into this season. But we also have the other half of the county and this part of the county in regards to snow. And I know staffing-wise, you typically are hiring a lot of temporary folks in regards to snow removal. Do you look at those folks being helpful too in this Bern area, as well as any snowfall that we, cross our fingers, hope to have? Not in the next 30, 45 days, but, hopefully snow by Christmas?
Yes, and in fact, within days of the fire, I had called in several extra hires that are snowplow drivers, and they became drivers for FEMA and Cal OES to tour the Borden areas. They then became drivers for Cal Recycle and DTSC. They're still driving for them. We have called in others to supplement my road crews right now for the work that we're doing, and we're definitely reaching out so that we are prepped and ready to go for the snow. Now, I will admit to you that we are falling a little behind up in the higher elevation snow areas that weren't burned, but we will be getting to those, and that's why I've asked for not only engineering and project management type support through Caltrans, but also for crews either under mutual aid from other counties or from Caltrans to help my crews get those people deployed within the fire area for the type of work so that my crews can then go back outside of the fire area and try to catch up.
Okay. Yeah. Are utility companies part of your team, you might say, in regards to the watershed management and protection of properties and things along that line?
I met last Friday morning with NRCS and PG&E, and we discussed what they are doing. PG&E is in the process of going back and doing erosion and sediment control and protections along the corridors that they have repaired and have been dropping trees, and that's very active. They will be providing me with mapping of those areas. And AT&T, of course, is still working, so until they're done with their construction side work, they generally don't follow up with erosion and sediment controls. For the most part, AT&T's lines are on the poles where they're joint poles, where they're AT&T only. I'm assuming that they will follow, but I haven't yet reached out to AT&T. I've also reached out to, at the same meeting PG&E was at, larger kind of look at this. PG&E is looking to help us with Arbor Day, Earth Days within the fire area, probably starting in January, and PG&E will be looking to supply trees for planting within our burn areas. So that's a good source. And then there are other sources that we can use for the reforestation, but we really need to have a couple of very, very good, decent rains before we can begin deploying small trees for reforestation.
Okay.
And then, of course, it's species specific. We want to make sure that we're getting species that are going to do well. The ponderosa pines are good post-fire. They're very quick growing. They're good, and we want to use trees that are native and are also bug resistant.
Okay. And then lastly, when we do have a storm and it's kind of overtaxing our system, I'm assuming you have access to CAL FIRE, their inmate crews and such, and perhaps engine crews to help in regards to downed trees and clearing roadways and digging out culverts and things along that line. Is that still a resource available to Public Works?
Yes, it is, and it reminds me that I forgot to mention another piece of my pie. is that I'm anticipating, since I'm anticipating higher than normal runoff, I'm anticipating areas in the county that have historically been challenged, specifically the creek here in San Andreas, Cosgrove Creek. I've made application to Fish and Wildlife Service to allow me to get in there and clean those of debris. And those have been in for the requisite 15 days. We'll follow up with a telephone call and let them know that we're going, and we're filling out the applications to get the CAL FIRE groups or the CCC groups to get into those creeks outside of the fire areas so that they're better able to handle the higher than anticipated or higher than normal runoff.
Great, thank you.
Jeff, would you also consider on Cosgrove, the upper Cosgrove area next to Highway 12, because that is, seems to be really plugged up here lately, so as they go through that process.
That is one of the targeted areas.
Good.
I also, I know it sounds a little bit pessimistic, but I also want to make sure that I've got materials for sandbagging stationed down in Valley Springs as well.
Jeff, Camp Lodestar up in Wilseyville could be a potential CCC site.
If you could provide me with the contact.
Just Google it, yeah.
Camp Lodestar.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's,
Yeah.
remote north.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Any other questions?
So I know that you've run down this thing really good. So that means you must have a plan that, basically an overall plan that kind of puts out the resources that you need total?
Right now, the plan is still captured in my head, and I have to get it down onto paper. And so that's critical that I force myself to have the time to do that, and that's why a couple of right and left-hand people related to the fire will be quite helpful.
Okay, thank you.
And a follow-up question, Mr. Provitz. What can the county and the Board of Supervisors help you in your tasks? Is there any area that you need assistance in to make this program work efficiently and faster?
Obviously, one of the most important things that we need, and I mentioned earlier that it is kind of a hole in the funding programs, is the ability to do watershed recovery, erosion sediment control, and protections of our resources, such as the reservoirs, that haven't really ever been deployed before on private property. And it is holes in programs only because it hasn't occurred. So any outreach that you have with congressmen, senators, both federal and state, would be very good, letting them know that this is an area of acute need that's very unique to the event here in Calaveras County. This is very different. I mean, you look at what the Valley Fire has, and I'm not trying to say that they are in any way in any better shape than we are, but the 1,000 homes that they burned in the Valley Fire are clustered. They're close together. The 550 or so homes that we currently know about are spread out across 117 miles. It's a completely different tactical approach to respond to that. And so, so any outreach that you can do that assists the flow of money and the allowances for us to mitigate on private lands and help our landowners, our large landowners, with resources would be really, really big picture helpful.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for carrying your load.
Okay. I'm going back to work.
Yeah. So we'll have public comment. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Lori Giannetti.
Come on up, Lori.
I'm really loud. I'm Lori Giannetti, and yesterday we were engaged in a meeting that was facilitated by Cal OES and FEMA, and the Long-Term Recovery, Butte Fire Recovery Steering Committee was formed. Alan Cinder is the chairman, I am the co-chairman. of that committee. And you guys have all done just amazing work, and thank you very much. I also, the main thing that we talked about yesterday is erosion control. And being, our home wasn't lost, but part of our ranch was affected, so I'm concerned about it also, and as is my husband. We would, as a ranching community, and I'm so glad that Mike Krolitich is here and has been involved, would like to have the county reach out to the Calaveras Farm Bureau, who's already reaching out to the State Farm Bureau, also to the Cattlemen's Association and the State Cattlemen's Association regarding seeding. As there is a lot of historical knowledge in this community, and there's people who, because it's been passed down from generation to generation to generation, understand the ground and understand what works and what doesn't work. And we would really like that ranching community reached out to and just part of the conversation. Also, as somebody in the ag industry, I would like to see that our ag commissioner and Kevin Wright and his office are also pulled into the process. There's a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of education there. And these people are doing amazing work, but I think that we can reach out broader because they're overwhelmed. And there's people in the community with knowledge that's inherited knowledge, or, you know, they're 80, 90 years old. Ed Robinson up on Highway 26 comes to mind right away. He's entertaining too. So just talking to some of these folks about seeding and what they think, you know, and not to discount the science. I get the science and I get what the university is trying to do and all of that, but there's some people in the community who really understand this ground
Lauren,
and what works with this
when
ground.
are you guys meeting next?
The steering committee is meeting Thursday at 3, this Thursday at 3.
And where at?
The Mormon Church, and it is, I believe, Church Street and Sunset. I think it's right there in their meeting room. So anyway, thank you again for all your amazing work. It's important, and whatever we can do to help, we're willing to do that. Alan also wanted me to convey that he would like members of the county employment force, not necessarily as, you know, this is my job because I have to be here, but, you know, there's several subcommittees that we're going to need some help with because this is long-term recovery, and just to be involved because it's their community, not because it's their job. All of us are involved because it's our community. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have to, before we move on, public comments, we have to take a 5-minute break. Okay, so we can continue, please. We'll continue with public comments on the Public Works presentation.
I guess I can talk now.
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, there's some different place we all live in now, and let's not forget that, especially those of us that don't have to look at it every day. So, but anyway, just to let you know about Calaveras Grown, which is kind of a little tiny organization. A lot of people in the county don't even know about it, know what it is, but it's a group of, you know, some agricultural producers in the county and people that care about ag and good food and healthy, you know, healthy lifestyles. Well, during the fire, we had an emergency board meeting that was called together by we have a project director that we pay whenever we can get some money, because you know, we don't get any money from anybody except dues or, you know, occasional donations. So anyway, and that person who's one of our, you know, farmer producers says, what are we doing? You know, are we ag producers? Do we care about what's the most important thing with us besides, you know, life? It's water and soil and all that. And, you know, and he's also trained in earth sciences from UC, you know, University of California. So kind of made us listen, you know, and sometimes you kind of go, oh yeah, we should do something. So what we did is we created, kind of on the spot at our emergency board meeting, was the Calaveras Grown Community and Forest Recovery Program. What that was going to be, we really didn't know, so we just started, okay, to start there, how can we help? So one of the things we've done, we start with some Facebook presence, and I'm going to give some commercial announcements on this. So, so if you could look at our Calaveras Grown Facebook, we also created the Calaveras Grown Butte Fire, Butte Fire Swap. And that the idea of that, and it worked pretty good so far, except there's some people that just have to put comments because they're gonna, there's a lot of lip service now. We need action. So the Butte Fire Swap is like, I have a trailer, say, I have a trailer that I could give to somebody who needs it. Then somebody can say whatever, or like this farmer that I talked about says he's taken, actually 2 days out of his own pocket each day to take his crews to, people's property to do some, erosion control, initial erosion control. And that's pretty amazing, I think, when you take people that are, doing something just to help now. And I think what's nice about what Calaveras Grown can do, we can do that because we're not encumbered by a system that I lived in for 31 years and, retired from, and kind of glad I'm not in that right now. But anyway, it's because, and I understand that, government's got to be slow, but it really can't be now, and our community can't be slow. So and it was nice to hear Jeff's thing, because what we've already been putting out is all this contoured felled trees. There's really simple stuff that's out there right now that's on people's property that can be used. And it's all about just, and I'm not going to get into that whole science or the mechanics of it, but you can go to the Calaveras Grown website, Facebook, that has the information that we're going. But to learn how, people need to take some responsibility, even the victims of the fires. What we found is that the work we're doing is giving hope back to some people to be able to get back to their property. To date, it's nice to know that government agency has one load of straw. We've put 6 loads of straw down for free for people to take. That equals 3,072 bales so far. We are staging them up at Station 1, Central Fire, Calaveras Central Fire, and then one at the Horse Arena in Moke Hill, because we figured those were the original. We'd like to have other spots to put them, but it's also the matter of money. So I've gone back into some of my work mode stuff, written a few grants in the past few days to try to get some money for. So the money we're getting now from donations, we're not paying for any people and all that. So, but at some point we have to do that. So, and what I said is that farmer, who I should say for being open, happens to be my son. So
30 seconds.
Okay. Oh, even this, it's shorter than the first deal. Okay, gotcha.
No, you have 5 minutes.
The what?
5 minutes.
Oh, okay. So anyway, so we're doing that, and now, and there's information on that. But I'm just going to read. Hopefully, I'll read fast. This is one of the families we went to last week, and what she posted. The cavalry has arrived, just like those old westerns. The relief we felt when. I'll stop. I'll be good.
It's up to
I'll be
Sorry.
good. Can I come up later and say something else?
There will be another time for you to come up.
Okay, good.
Mike,
Thanks.
one quick question. Mike, what is your website address?
calaverasgrown.org. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Like,
Thank you, Mike.
Okay. Any other public comments?
House County Taxpayer Association. Sometimes I come up here and I say negative things, and this time I want to say something really positive. I think we got a real winner with our Director of Public Works. He's doing much more than we could expect from him, and taxpayers are really proud of that.
Thank you.
I make it a practice of listening and what is not being said. One of them is there's going to be some benefits to the needy, and I think it's probably needed, and I support it. But I want to make sure that you folks are in the decision-making. I believe there's 3 different agencies was mentioned, including Public Works. But I want to know who, what, where, and how much going to be distributed to the needy, because it's going to be your clients or whatever is supposed to be living on that area, how much is going to be given, and it should be, you're aware of it and agree with it. Also, one thing that kind of puzzles me, there was going to be some hay or something going to be dropped on a farmer's land so the cattle was able to stomp the hay and the ash into the ground. I thought that was a big no-no because that you don't want that ash to be getting into the groundwater. Now, which is it? Is it a poison or is it okay to be put in the ground? I mean, I can understand why you want to control a rundown from that water. But is that ash the reason you're keeping people off of their property? Now you're having a cattle stomp it into the ground, so it drains the groundwater. That's another thing. Watershed assistance. Well, before I go into watershed, there's another thing that I noticed was missing. We do have local fire districts who are quite familiar with the area. And it's really nice that you're bringing all this help from outside the county, all these different fire agencies and so on. But you do have local fire districts. And instead of them going out, renting themselves out to different areas to make ends meet, they were the first responders. And I didn't hear too much about how you're going to get those folks involved in this saving their neighborhood. So, yeah, it was a nice presentation. I'm dazzled, folks. I'm always dazzled what they're going to do, but I would like to see the end results. Good intentions are great, but good results are even better. I would like to have local people get involved also. I'm still going to be undiplomatic and tell you, past experience with FEMA is not exactly outstanding. You know what, do it to me once, shame on you. Do it to me twice, shame on me. And if I get it done to me 3rd time, we deserve it. And that's FEMA, folks. I can afford not to be diplomatic. You shouldn't be. But FEMA did us real good, folks. Don't forget that. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other public comments on the Public Works presentation? Okay. None? All right. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.
Thank you, Jeff.
Who wants to go next? Okay, Jason?
Jason Baitzer, Agency Administrator of Calaveras County Environmental Management Agency. Just to touch base on Peter's question regarding the ash regarding protection of public health and the health officer proclamation is ash from burned structure, not the ash from the natural resources from trees or other vegetation that's in our forests. So just to make that clarification, the ash that we talk about in our debris removal program and the health officer proclamation is from burned structures. So with that being said, just update the board where we're at. We have Cali PA, Fed EPA with their contractors, along with my staff who's escorting and mutual aid from Sacramento County, along with drivers from Public Works, coordinating 6 different teams performing household hazardous waste removal. To date, as of today, they've been to 403 properties removing household hazardous waste. In addition to that, we also have teams that are performing asbestos surveys and radiological surveys in the burn structure area prior to the debris removal teams reaching those sites. As far as the number of people that have signed up with the county and state debris removal program, we have 575 right of entry forms, so that number continues to increase with good outreach with our public information officer with Sharon, and also my staff educating the public when they come into our office to describe the two methods of cleaning up their property, either going with the county state debris removal program or the self-certification process, which those documents will be put on our website today if people choose to clean up the property themselves and self-certify and meet the same standards to ensure that we're protecting public health and the environment as these cleanups take place. As far as properties cleaned, let me step back with that. So last week, we ended up with 6 debris removal teams at the end of the week in 3 different areas of the county, with the western part of Jesus Maria, central part of Jesus Maria, and then Old Gulch. And looking at these areas as environmental sensitive, receptive areas that we want to get cleaned up. Also coordinating with Jeff and logistics with heavy rains, and knowing that these properties are going to be have the potential to be more impacted with the heavy rains. As we ramp up, we have the county in 5 divisions, and as we increase with the number of teams, we'll be breaking more teams out in each of those divisions. Starting tomorrow, we'll be in cleaning up the Golden Spur and also Window Road area. And so by the end of this week, we'll have 12 teams, debris removal teams deployed. That's approximately 150 workers out there removing debris from properties. So next week, we continue to ramp up, and hopefully within 2.5 weeks from now, we'll be at about 24, 25 teams, and then hopefully continue to increase. With that, we also have teams going out ahead of the debris removal teams and putting in, for lack of a better term, ash containment or runoff. So we are deploying mitigation measures. So when we have these rains before we can clean up the property, that ash from a burned structure is contained to that property. So we have the U.S. Army Corps assisting with our operations. They were put in from FEMA and assisting with that. And my goal is by the next week to have 5 to 7 teams ramping up and deploying that ash containment and those mitigation measures. So that's where we're at with that, and understand that, and that's a high priority for me as it is everybody else. So we have 7 properties that have been cleared of debris and 4 properties that have been sampled. We started last week in the debris removal. It's been almost 3 weeks with the household hazardous waste removal, so we're making progress. As we continue ramping up our teams, the numbers of properties being cleared will increase. Dealing with logistics and safety concerns, we're forwarding all our information daily to Sharon with the public, with our PIO, so the public can go to the county Facebook page, the Butte Fire website. We're also putting information out on our trap lines on where we're performing the debris removal. It's imperative for me and our teams that the public knows where we're heading. Also, public safety. Last week, we almost had one of our flag people get hit because somebody didn't slow down in the construction zone driving 40 miles an hour. So we want to get this information out where we're at, so the people know to be aware in those areas where we have a lot of heavy equipment and people work in those areas. So as we move forward, we'll be reaching out to those property owners that have not signed the right of entry or have expressed interest in the self-certification process. Right now, we have a date of November 6th for people to sign up for the debris removal program. That's not a hard date, but as we get closer, we want to encourage people to sign up into the program if they're going to sign up, because logistically, especially as we're in areas and we clean up in an area, and if somebody comes back and signs the right of entry form, now we have to deploy teams back to that area, which we'll do, but we really want to encourage people to participate in the process. So as we expand, and especially we get out there the 24, 25 teams, and look in our logistics with the roadways, that we can be as efficient as possible and clean all those properties up in those specific neighborhoods. So we'll be coordinating with all the county departments as we have. We've shared our list of right of entries with the assessor's office, so help them and their job, and also with the building department. And we've been coordinating with Jeff with stormwater mitigation on the private property, and have performed outreach with Calaveras Growing too. So we're moving forward. I have, right now, our operations center is out of Angels Camp. That's where they found a building. So I have an operations chief and a planning chief. I also have a retired director from Sacramento County who's assisting as a liaison between the operations center and our office, so we have information funneled in. He's also been coordinating our class that we had last week. We had 36 people take the 40-hour HAZWOPER class. We'll be offering that class again October 26th, and that's open to the public, so it's also open to people that may not participate in work as a contractor in the county state debris removal program, but if they want to take the class, contractor wants to take the class to become certified to help a homeowner through the self-certification process, that class is available to them. So, any questions?
Are you connecting with AT&T at all?
Our OES last week made a request, or we also have Judy with State OES working out of our operations center to look at getting additional cell service in the area, because communications is an issue for our debris removal teams right now. So that we did put that request in last week. I have to get an update from her to see where that request is at.
So, okay, because it was a topic of discussion on Friday too, through OES, about the many dead spots up in the area, and it was kind of hard even with the cows because of the terrain, you know. But what I'm talking about is it possible for you to connect with Stan, who has a connection with AT&T, so that when a lot is cleared, you can inform them of that, and that way, and maybe the property owner, let them know, you know, that, because they aren't going to come and put a service in or even consider that unless there's something there that they can put a service to.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. We are notifying, all the property owners are notified at least 24 hours before the debris removal teams enter the property. This is giving the property owner, you know, if they want to, you know, communicate anything that they want to keep, whether it's a piano harp we have requests, to wood stoves that they want to keep, the debris removal teams will set off to the side for the property owner to keep. So we will add that notification in and include Stan in that, because as the properties become clear and receive the analytical results back that shows that you know, there's no hazards left from the soil samples, then we'll make those notifications to the building department, planning department, and so then those people can come in and submit their plans for rebuilding.
So we were at a meeting with AT&T, and we asked them to provide a publication or a handout, or, you know, some information so the property owners know when they get to that opportunity they can connect. If they choose to connect with AT&T.
Yeah, and if it's AT&T or whomever, you know, if there's a packet, we have some information that we're giving to the property owner, but whether it's other departments that want to include information in kind of a packet that we can hand property owners after there's property cleared to help them rebuild, we can include that as part of our process. And because communication is tough right now for a lot of people.
So when was the first test that you sent in for?
That first test was, the samples were taken Wednesday, and so they got to the lab, I believe, Thursday morning, so we should be getting the results back today. It's a 5-day turnaround on that. So I asked if we could expedite. The fastest that can go is a 3-day turnaround for the CAM-17 metals. That's the metals that we're testing for that they find in a lot of ash, whether it's, you know, arsenic, copper, nickel, cadmium, lead, those metals that we're testing for.
Okay.
So I just want to clarify, how many teams by when?
So by the end of this week, there'll be 12 teams. So tomorrow we're deploying, right now there's 6 teams. Tomorrow there'll be 2 more areas with 2 more teams existing in the 3 areas of West Jesus Maria, Central Jesus Maria, and Old Gulch. There's 2 teams in each of those areas for a total of 6 right now. Tomorrow we'll be getting 2 more teams, and then by the end of the week, 12 teams.
And then 2.5 weeks from today?
I'm hoping in 2.5 weeks from today that we're up to 24 teams, 25 teams throughout the county.
So
So
by,
the first week of November, end of October, first week of November. All the teams, there's a lot of, as you can imagine, logistics that go into it. Some of you have seen the sites with the water tenders, dump trucks. We also have air monitors at each site, so make sure as they're removing the debris, ash, it's being wetted down, that we're not impacting neighbors' properties. This is all with part of OSHA requirements, and that they're meeting those standards. So it's getting all those logistics, getting these teams deployed, as we got 36 more people trained last week with local contractors, and those wanting to participate in the program will be able to deploy more teams out in the field. So,
okay. And then as far as long-term monitoring, are you going to need to go back in there to the sites after it's been cleared and approved?
once our right of entries are, once we've cleaned up the property, we've procured our samples, and we're done, everything is clean, that right of entry is terminated at that point.
Okay.
I know that's been some of the public concern, that if that allows government agency back on their property at any given time, and no, that is not true. So once we're done, once we procure the samples, everything's good, and we review it, certify it, then that right of entry is terminated, and there's language in those right of entry forms.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Question, Jason. Once the property's termed clean and accessible, is that registered anywhere for future sale of that property or something, or does it keep on file at your office?
No, what the building department and other departments that need that information will get a certificate that shows that it met standards, okay? The certificate will be issued once, for those properties that have insurance, where the county works out the insurance pass-through for debris removal from the individual insurance company through to the county, to the state, then they'll receive a certificate, but the property will be cleared at the time we get the analytical results and everything looks good, so we can expedite the permitting process, so we can start the rebuilding process. So they may not get an official piece of paper until all the transactions with insurance is completed, but that's not going to hold up us clearing the property so they can rebuild and start, getting back to, getting where they need to be. So, and then those people that don't have insurance will be, same process, and there'll be standard language that we have that every property owner will get when the property is cleared. And that's going to be standard language whether they go through the county state program or they self-certify.
I have a question that you may be able to answer. Your PIO, Susan, could you step up for a moment? Sharon, I'm sorry. I'm terrible with me.
That's
I received a call this morning from another supervisor in an adjoining county that happened to know a resident in Calaveras County that happened to have lost his home and property. And he was totally unaware of our cleanup program. Now, I know we made every effort to notify the folks out there. Is there any way we can get a hold of folks that may be out of the area or living in a remote area where maybe their mail service has been interrupted by the fire or something of that? Do we have any interface with property listings of those type of APNs versus what we're cleaning? And how do you recommend we get this?
We're using all the resources that we have, meaning Facebook, Twitter, posting hard copies throughout the community, radio, TV, newspaper, county website.
We're actually doing radio advertisement?
Oh, yeah.
Good, that's great.
Well,
Because folks will listen to the radio.
Public service announcements.
Public service announcements.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
And the other thing that we're doing, the teams that are out there are carrying the right of entry forms along with other information, health effects of the ash, denial of right of entry forms if people don't want us on the property. So That's the liaisons with the hazmat sweep teams and also with the debris removal teams. So we're trying to do as much outreach, why we have people out in the field, educating them of the program. Also last week spoke in Mount Ranch with the United Policyholders. They invited me. And last night in McCulmy Hill at Hotel Leger, speaking to a group of people there, that insurance company invited me to speak on the debris removal program. So anytime that there's, whether it's nonprofits, private organizations, community organizations, we've been given our updates. Number one, communicating to the people where we're at, what's going on, but also the programs that are in place and encouraging people to get their properties cleaned up.
Great, guys.
We've
Good job.
also posted on all the in all the areas that I mentioned, a list of telephone numbers, one of which is for the Joint Information Center. So we're able to receive calls from the public with any questions that they have. If we don't know the answer, we research it, get back to them, and so that's the other way that we're communicating to the public.
Good, thank you.
So, kind of is what Mike mentioned with Calaveras growing, and every little step, the whole point is restoring hope to our communities and people seeing what's being done. And so we're trying to communicate that out. And I know those people that have had their properties cleared this past week is seeing a definite mindset switch, and to me that's exciting. And our goal is just to keep ramping this up. We have a lot of boots on the ground. There's a lot logistically that we have going on with all the different teams and stuff. And so, as we continue to, get our success stories and market that, and I know Mike was out with public television yesterday. They shot a video last week. Somebody out of Sharon's office shot a video of kind of showing the before, during, post removal process, and we hope to get that out. So all that good communications and media is good for the community, and also hopefully those people that haven't signed up in the program, get them signed up so we can get everything cleaned up. So thank you.
Jason, I've got some questions also. And I know you said this, but I was writing so fast.
Yeah.
I wasn't writing as fast as you were talking.
Sorry.
No, that's my fault. The locations.
So the locations.
That you're at, if they go to the Butte Fire page.
Yeah.
They'll have an up-to-date where you're working.
Butte Fire page, the two new ones that I just received 5 minutes before I walked in here is the Golden Spur and Wendell Road. So the other three locations are already on the Butte Fire page. These two locations will be going out to Sharon's office today to be posted out to the Facebook and Butte Fire page. And then also on the county trap lines, as far as the sandwich boards that CAL FIRE use. So we're putting out, they have staff that are going out and putting up our updates on that daily. So.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Brian Moss, and thank you, Brian, for sending out the essential elements note that you sent to us. It's actually very helpful. Sent a pretty good page with a lot of info on it. I've got a couple questions. The sign up for debris removal, on here you have 570 right of entry forms signed, but number of properties with pre-debris reports 700 plus. So the difference is 130 plus have not signed up for.
Yeah, in some of those properties, those pre-site assessments were what my staff and mutual aid from Sacramento, San Joaquin, and LA County Environmental Health Departments, and also El Dorado County, we performed, and that was looking at burn structures, but also looking at the well and septic. So there's some properties where there maybe the house is okay, but they lost an outbuilding or the well was impacted, or some of those in that 700 and some, I know there was no impacts to the property. When we did our first initial sweep, we were looking at all the properties that were out there to get an idea, one, the resources that we needed coming in from DTSC and get that information so they could expedite their haz waste removal, and also for the debris removal team. So you know, and that's why we're sharing the information with the assessor's office and other county departments, because as we get people coming in to inquire, whether it's the right of entry forms, also with, or self-certify, that we're documenting that. And then we're going to go back to look at our site inspections and perform that outreach that Supervisor Oliveira was mentioning, to now that we're kind of, we've contacted a lot of people regarding the right of entry, and staff can start doing some outreach to these property owners that we haven't heard from. So it may be hard to get a hold of them, like you said, but at least that we can start putting those individual efforts to performing that outreach. So, continue to get, because we just had a call yesterday, somebody was from out of county. This was their second home, and we provided them the information and went through the different processes and what they could go through to clean up their property. So whether they go with the county state program or self-certify.
So there is a little outreach to these people still needed?
Yeah, continuously.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, on October 26th, you're having a class for construction, and they will receive a certification to remove the debris?
So the certification meets, the class on October 26th is the hazardous waste operations class. In order for somebody to work as a contractor, to remove debris for a homeowner, or to be part of the county state debris removal teams, this is an OSHA requirement that they have the 40-hour HAZWOPER class. And so once they're done with this class, they'll get a certificate. They meet the requirements set forth by OSHA, and then they can continue that. If they want to keep that certificate, it requires an 8-hour refresher annually.
How do they register for that?
They can call our department and register. They can call environmental health at 209-754-6399. And all the contractors that initially expressed interest in people that with our department for the first class, we sent out a blast email to all of them again. Even though a lot of them were in our original class, we sent out a blast again to all the people just to say, hey, we're having a second class if you weren't able to attend the first class.
Great, thank you for doing that. Another note that was on here was a hazmat sweep properties cleared estimate of 320 properties. Does that mean you have been through 320 properties and they're hazard-free?
It's actually, that is now up to 403 when I gave that number. So I received some new information from last week, this morning. That is the removal of household hazardous waste. So that's not the removal of any ash or any hazards within the burn structure. It's removal of household hazardous waste. For example, propane bottles, unspent ordnances, ammunition, 50 caliber or less. If there is a lot of lead acid batteries that melted from solar systems and vehicles, it's removing all the lead from that. Some places where maybe a lot of people had drums of material where those drums did not release the material, but they are bulging due to the heat, they will remove the contents of those drums and render the household hazardous waste removal, render that safe for the debris removal teams. We're still going to have the hazmat teams in place, because even thus far as they're removing the ash from the structure, they've found household hazardous waste, and then those teams are on standby to come by and pick up the household hazardous waste from the debris removal process.
Thanks for clarifying that for me. Appreciate that. And just as I said to Jeff, thanks for all you and your department are doing. We do appreciate it. I know you've been putting the midnight oil on, and I thank you for that.
Thank you. I get good people, so that helps. Thank you. Any other questions?
I have a couple. Follow up on Steve's. What I understand is that you had the class and you had 36. You have another class coming. And the fee is waived. Is that correct for this class?
That is correct.
So, but if I wanted to take the class and it didn't fit into this time frame, can I, as a contractor, go online or go somewhere to take this kind of class?
Yeah, that's a good point, Debbie. There is a lot of online classes that offer the 40-hour HAZWOPER, so I understand, too, that during the week, that's when people are making their money, so it's hard for them to attend. But if they wanted to take an online class on the weekend and take that class at their own pace, they could do that. I've had to do it once. It was painful, but they can do it, and it's self-paced. And if they have questions whether the class meets the OSHA requirements, they can contact our department, and we can help them out to say, yes, this is a approved class.
This is the class?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
that's
'cause
the
I don't
other
want-
thing I've learned too, is that there's different levels of hazardous material kinds of classes. And so getting the right kind of class for this process
Yeah,
is...
they would need the 40-hour HAZWOPER, but if they're going to take an online class and they had questions, they could call our department, and we could help clarify that for them.
Okay, all right. And then, you know, I know there's a lot of, you talked about when you go on to these properties and if there's a burned structure, what are you doing about just this, the, not simple thing, but the more, maybe less complicated cleanup in regards to like a well or a sewer? Are there specific folks that just go out and concentrate on that aspect of the cleanup?
Yeah, so what we've done, because we understand if it's, you know, looking at our original site assessments, and we've had a few people, and we've coordinated with Jeff from Public Works and Cal Waste, that, for instance, a chicken coop burned down, okay? You know, there's no electrical, there's not all the metals that are in place that are in a garage or a normal house. So with that being said, either myself or my operations chief, Dean Peterson, will go out, verify that, and then we've created a form where the person can, you know, order a bin by Cal Waste, no ash to be removed, okay, because it's just the wood and the metal to be put in the container, and that is picked up. So we've looked at an expedited process where a house and garage are not impacted, but it's just an outbuilding with no haz waste in it, no electrical, no other appliances, et cetera, that could add heavy metals to the ash, where they can do an expedited cleanup with that. We've also, since we're on this topic, we've also developed, I mentioned this last week, but we continue to receive our self-certification forms that we provided to well drillers and pump people that are working on the wells. So to help expedite that process and understand the importance to have those wells buttoned up and before and sealed prior to, well, we had rains on Saturday, but we get any more rains, so we protect that, our groundwater supply. So we continue to provide those forms, and in essence, the well driller pump person can self-certify what they did at that property, as long as all the work is above ground, whether replace the casing above ground, the pump, et cetera, and we're receiving those documentation and receive good feedback on that. So it helped eliminate them coming into our office and obtaining a permit for everyone. We wanted to get the boots on the ground and get those, our groundwater, protected.
So kind of a little different system than the overall bigger picture of a home and a garage?
Yes, correct.
Make it a little
Correct.
bit simpler and maybe less complicated
Yeah,
for folks?
and so we recognize that, so.
And do you, and I don't know if it's appropriate in your department area or not, but I have people saying, you know, I don't know who to call for some level of service, whether it be for a well or your sewer system. I'm sure building, you know, Jeff mentioned last week about having a list of who the contractors are for building and plumbing or plumbers and so on and so forth. Do you have something similar in your department about, you know, who's, I won't say best, but who folks can maybe call to say, this out-of-town person, I have no idea who to call locally to look at my well or my septic. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, we have a list of whether it's well drillers, pump people, septic contractors. Of course, the list is, we're not endorsing anybody on the list
Right.
like you mentioned, but we do have those lists. And what I can do too is work with Sharon. I believe they're on our normal environmental health page, but that's, you know,
Right.
a little bit buried now with the Butte Fire stuff, so we can get that information. So it's posted on the Butte Fire page and also on the Facebook page, and
Okay.
so get that information out for people.
Yeah, I was just curious if you had something
Yep,
similar through your
we do.
department, so, all right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I have one quick question. I know you are overwhelmed with the duties that have been put on you in the last month, but I am getting questions from people also on our regular business going forward. Are we still trying to do things like finals on wells and
I still have, so I pulled back staff, a couple, well, over the last couple weeks slowly, incorporating mutual aid, and then this is where Jeff has helped out with having his seasonal workers be the liaisons with some of our hazmat sweep teams. I still have 2 staff out there, but we're rotating our schedules, so staff person, if they're out assisting with the hazmat sweeps for a couple days, they can come in, tend to off, and then tend to their normal duties and make sure that we have that coverage. My whole goal in all of this is not only serving the victims of the fire, but also make sure that we still can have that level of service to our normal day-to-day operations and continue that. So we're continuing that. You know, Sac County people that are here are also helping with the debris removal process, but I'm also down 2 staff of normal. We're looking to hire 2 staff, and so they're assisting in addition in some hazmat inspections that we haven't been able to get to. So it's nice having that mutual aid here to assist on that, and hopefully we can get our 2 staff hired sooner than later. That will help with our day-to-day operations.
Thanks. As I said, thanks for what you're doing. I know you got your hands full.
Well, this whole process, it's moving, and again, as I've stated here and before in our community meetings, this is about a process that we're protecting our properties, our neighbors, and our communities in the cleanup of all this debris and hazardous materials and hazardous ash that's out there, and in a process that we look at it from a global perspective, but also getting those individual property owners back on their property as soon as possible. So thank you.
I sent you an attachment to a website the other day, I think it was, for Cal Recycle. And
Yes.
On Cal Recycle, they have a disaster preparedness and response 2015 Valley Fire cleanup, and it is updated. It looks like, probably every other day.
Well, the last date I saw was October 7th on that.
So this is October 14th, it's updated.
Okay.
And it's a really helpful.
I've requested that to be done through my Cal Recycle liaison, so they're working on that. One of the things that I need to talk to Sharon about, as we start updating multiple websites, where do we want to direct people to? And that information now is going to be included in our essential elements of information that we provide to administration. But nonetheless, I've sent Cal Recycle an email that that Butte Fire should have that exact same thing. But also locally, I see more importantly that we try to direct people to our local information, because we have more information there for our local citizens versus the Cal Recycle site. But I did get your email, and I did forward it, that we at least get our statistics and information on the state website.
Yeah, sure. So get our statistics on this format, and then we can always put that onto our communications stream. But this is super simple. Yeah, thanks, Jason. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Thanks. Public comments?
Public comments, please.
Oh, thank you. Al Segala, Taxpayer Association. I appreciate the good work that's being done here. There's several questions. We're coming to the rainy season now, and one of the concerns that we have is erosion, because the fire not only burnt brush but burnt grass. And I'd just like to know if there's reseeding going on in more dangerous areas, perhaps by a helicopter or airplane. I think it makes sense, and it may be being done, but it might be worthwhile to look into that, and as soon as possible, to get those seeds on the ground, so that in the first rains, they can germinate during the first rains. And that may prevent some real serious problems with erosion. The second thing, as a real estate broker, I have access to I got a copy of the assessor's roll. It's less than $100. It's a disc. It's in Excel format. And from that, you can identify the mailing address of the property owner of every property. And you can do this And also, the county has a GIS system, which you can identify property by contour map, and you can see which properties are in the gullies, which are on the ridge tops and such, with the roads on the same map. And also, by just a click of the button, you can go to aerial satellite photos to get a picture that way. So by using the assessor's tools, what we talked about earlier probably could be headed off. You should have a database of every property owner that is in the fire area, and also every property area that had a structure on there. In the same database, there's a distinction between improved and unimproved property. Bingo, now you got every place that had a structure, even though I understand a lot of the structures are not permitted. I don't know how many of them, but we shouldn't let the permit issue get clouded into the efforts we're doing now. We should treat every property owner in a uniform way, respecting their property rights. And the next comment we have is, has there been an identification of which properties have fire insurance? And I've been having a hard time getting that picture. I've been hearing guesses of 3%, 30%, 50%. Well, it's good to know which properties where the property owners have fire insurance, because usually in the fire insurance, the cost of cleanup is included. And another thing we might want to be concerned with is keeping track of the expenses of all these things that are going on. Who's paying for this stuff? Is it the state? Is it the federal government? Is it the general fund? Maybe not, maybe not. There's a lot of private money. I know I have donated, and I know a lot of other people have donated to help. So it might be a good idea to get a grip on what's happened financially on this whole thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Al. Sorry.
My name is
Doesn't
Tiffany
matter.
DeAngelis, and I live in Mountain Ranch, and we lost 2 homes to the Butte Fire. So cleanup is pretty big to us. It's our understanding, in order to obtain a building permit, our property has to be cleared first. But there's no list telling us when our property will be cleaned. Yes, we understand you're at the Old Gulch, we understand you're at this and this, but how long will it take to get to us? We don't want to be first, we don't want to be last, we just want a list. Are we a month down the line? What is it? In order to get FEMA, to move a modular on your property has to be cleared. So how long will it take us to be cleared? I know one of the things, my understanding you're going to talk about today is clearance. So our devastation, we have 40 acres. Where we want to build is not going to be on the same part of the property where the devastation was. We're actually 800 feet from there. It has its own entrance. There's a gate that is between the devastation and where our new build will be. But we've been told you can't get a building permit, until the devastation is cleared. So I think for us, it's how long will we have to wait to rebuild? How long is it going to take?
So the site that you're talking about,
Yeah.
You said that it has its own entrance and all that. Were there any buildings burnt on that area?
On the part that we want to build on now?
Yeah.
No.
Do you have well and septic and all that stuff over there?
Yes.
Okay.
So Jason, do you have an answer for that?
So we'll, as one of our board agenda items after this, we'll be talking about our temporary housing
Not
ordinance.
that part, but the list part. 'Cause
The
that-
list
other
part,
people
yeah.
have
So
also-
as we ramp up teams, we'll know, I mean, our overall goal, as I talked last night in McCombie Hills, 3 months. And I know as we ramp up teams and get people out in the different areas of the county, that we'll be putting that information out. If you can give, people have given me their address, and as I see teams coming in and we get into the different areas that we can communicate to you so you have a better idea. You know, as we'll know, as we ramp up to our full 25 teams here in a couple weeks, have a better idea logistically where we're at and where we're going in timeframes. Right now, as we continue to increase teams, we pick different areas because we don't want to jam our roadways with trucks, and also in looking at public safety and logistics that way. And we have the area, as I said, the burn area in 5 different divisions, working outside and towards each other in those areas and looking at environmental sensitive areas with our watersheds. So if I can get your address and afterwards, and then I can, you know, find out where we're at and when the operations center, because that's what I need to get plugged into as far as potential time frames, where we'll be deploying teams in your area, I can get you that information.
Yeah.
But here's what we can do in the meantime. If I'm going to build 800 feet from my devastated area, allow me to build my slab and get going on my building, where somebody who doesn't have the opportunity to build in a different spot like I do, go clear their property. Help them out. Put us last on the list to clear the devastated area. Allow us to get our building permit 800 feet from there. We have no problem being moved to later in the list as long as we can get a building permit to start.
Yeah, that was my point last meeting.
Ma'am, of your 40 acres, was it totally consumed in the fire?
No,
Your home was?
we had 2
Can
homes.
you give me a rough percentage of property that was consumed in the fire? A rough percentage?
Less than 10%.
Less than 10% of
So
your
it
40
came up our
acres.
main driveway, took our homes,
Okay.
but it stayed up at the top of there where the rest of the property was not.
And you have water and septic on the
Our well
remaining?
was not touched.
200 amp service.
And 200 amp service. So like I said, we're willing to say, give us the permit, because you guys say, as long as you're within 155 feet or whatever you guys are going to talk about today, let us put our slab there. Let us start rebuilding. Go deal with people who don't have the opportunity to rebuild in a different spot like we do, and then come to us later.
Sounds good.
It does to me too. What are the thoughts of our building officials and?
Well, we can't talk about that right now because
It's actually the
that's the
next
agenda
agenda.
item.
Oh, okay.
Is the building permits,
Yeah,
right?
gotcha.
I get that.
But
But
the
FEMA
map
can't-
and
but
the
FEMA
communication, all of that, I did a little calculation. By the end of the year, looks like it'll be around 300 homes, or 300 sites will be cleaned out of the 500 some.
I'm hoping more than that.
So, yeah,
Yeah, I'm hoping for much more than that.
So, Jason,
Time flies, man.
is there a way to develop a list that we can publicize or that people can get access? Because she's not, I mean, there's,
Actually, this here is, you know, that on the Cal Recycle site, the one we talked about earlier. Well, it
Another
doesn't
thing
really
that
have a list,
doesn't
yeah.
Another thing that doesn't quite make sense is you're telling us that we can't live on our own property and rebuild, but say like somebody next door to us,
Is
their
doing it
place
anyway.
didn't burn down. They're already inhabiting that place, which is probably closer than where I'm wanting to rebuild.
yeah, the problem we're facing is that there's the on-the-ground reality and then there's the legal reality. And so
Right.
that's the
So
disconnect that we're
that's
having.
but that's an
That's the
agenda
next
item that we
agenda.
have to get to. We can't really
Right.
talk about that now.
Right.
So if you can hang in with us, we'll get back to you.
Yeah.
But as far as a list, I'll talk to our operations team where we can, as we start getting more teams deployed, if we can say, okay, we're going to be, you know, this is our area for the week. And, you know, and I think we can do that once we logistically branch out and expand to full operations. And this is our area teams for the week, and get that out to people. Right now, we're building it up.
Right.
So we haven't, and it's hard to.
There's no list, you can't make it yet because you don't have enough.
We don't have all our teams built out, and so we're, you know, this is a process, and you know, I'm asking people as, you know, we're getting there, just, you know, and we may be closer to your property depending on where we deploy teams in the next couple of weeks, so, you know, by all means, share the address, and then I can get some information to you and share that with you, and then we can go from there.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm
Dean Mills, and I'm a Mountain Ranch resident. One of my questions was directed to kind of the same thing. My daughter and her boyfriend lost every structure on their property. They have no idea where they are on a list, when the cleanup can begin. They were fortunate, they are insured, so they have that in place. But some hope of when it's going to happen so that they can start moving forward. I think that's what a lot of our community members are just kind of looking for, is some timelines and some sort of hope so that they feel like something's moving forward. The other comment that I wanted to make, you were talking about AT&T. I'm still without a landline. I have Verizon as a cell carrier. I have no way to communicate with the outside world but email. Who can kick AT&T in the butt and make them start fixing these phone lines? We have a lot of our people that are still there are elderly people that need access to emergency services. They have none. And it's concerning to me because I've lived up there a long time. I know these people, and no phone. I know when I've called AT&T, I've been given 3 different dates that it would be back up and running. We're right off Railroad Flat Road. We're not in the interior. Everyone around us lost their homes but us, thank God. But this is a long process, and with no phone service, like when my daughter and her boyfriend come, because they're living with us now as long as another person, they can't contact who they need to contact from home. So, I mean, is there any help with the county kind of giving them a swift kick and seeing if they can start maybe, PG&E moved in here like an army and got the power restored, and AT&T is just trickling in.
Yeah.
And I've heard when
I think
I've
that
worked,
procedure is in progress.
I feel your pain.
because when I've been down at the park helping out and stuff, I've also been helping with our Board of Realtors placing trailers and stuff for people. That's their complaint. They're just like, they're without any way of checking in on what's going on with anything, and they feel absolutely helpless and hopeless. I just don't think that's a good
So
way
that
for
was
people to feel.
another issue that was brought up in a meeting on Friday with the director of OES. And he was going to reach out and touch someone. So,
I would like to as well. No, thank you.
The next.
I have noticed, we have had several meetings, Cliff has been really pushing them hard with AT&T, and I have noticed they have ramped up their crews, but I also noticed when, right at the end of the fire, the amount of PG&E crews here probably were like about the same population of the county. I mean, they were huge, so, that's what, in my mind, I want to see that level of AT&T crews. But what I've been informed is that they don't actually have that many people that they could even deploy.
Could you come up? Could you come up to? Thank you.
But when I called at one time, they told me to, which I thought was, maybe you should just find someone that's working in the area and ask them when your phone will be restored. And I was told by one of them that they had cable back ordered. So they didn't even have enough cable to restring what was needing to be done.
Right.
And we're all kind of, it's not like we can go choose another phone company either, so we're all kind of trapped in what's going on.
So, their infrastructure is different than PG&E's.
It's more intricate. And
It's a more intricate, they have like lots of pairs of wire. The PG&E has 2 or 3. But they've all, in fairness to AT&T, they've also brought up a communications cow and set it up in Mountain Ranch.
So will they provide us with AT&T cell phones to use some of those?
Well, I don't know about the cell phones, but for communications and data, so people can use their IPAs and things like that there as well, and their cell phones within that area. I never had 5 bars up in Mountain Ranch before. Matter of fact, I never had 0.
No, we always would get Golden State, or they were a better provider in that area, in little pockets, never AT&T, so.
So all I can say is, it's on the radar, and we're pushing as hard as we can, and so is the folks that we asked to help with that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm from the government and here to help you folks. we're getting a lot of hazmat teams coming in and verifying it. And it's great. I really appreciate it. Who's holding the liability for the verifications? Is it a county or their own particular county is going to be holding it? There was some discussion prior weeks that what caused the fire was PG&E was accused. I don't know if it's the air or not. Has any band more news? Who's looking into that? Another thing. As far as I know, and I'm not very well informed, I don't know about these big county issues, other than a sheriff department, has any of you firehouses supplied with hazmat training and suits and equipment?
I didn't understand your question, sir.
Is any of the local firehouses or districts, are they trained, have the equipment for hazmat work? Thank you. As far as I know, the sheriff department is the only one who has it. Think about it. And this would be a good time to train the local guys. The other thing I'd like to know is, I didn't hear a commitment. Are the local fire districts going to get involved in this rebuilding, rejuvenating this county? It's nice that we're having all these different organizations. But for one thing, it shows how shortchanged our fire districts are. And that's one of the, I think it's the second priority of this community. Cops, firefighters, and local roads. After that is secondary. But local hazmat team should be in here, and hopefully you consider having it in here. That's not a turf war between the county supervisors and my local firemen. Those are the ones who first got up there. And somehow they got kind of pushed out of the way. Well, I trust if somebody comes up to my property and said, hey, I'm from the federal government, I'm here to help you, hit the road, schmuck. If my local fireman comes up here, hey, I want to help you, but the potential danger, I trust him. And you know it. You would do it on your own property also. You got to be polite. I don't. I trust my fireman, even Consolidated Fire District. And I know a couple of guys in the other fire districts. I trust those guys. I trust my local cop. All the other gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen coming from out of county, get real. But those folks who don't want to cooperate, maybe should be approached by local firemen that wants to know if the broken arm or a bite by the snake, those guys show up right away and help them, not 2, 3 weeks or a month later. This young lady brought up a good point, and it was thought about before, and we thought, well, let's put it off till things get settled. The emergency communication in this county, we got mixed companies, so I can't really describe it. But it was not exactly satisfactory. For somebody at Murphy's or Valley Spring or whatever to know exactly what's happening in this county, I have to go to Sacramento station, a radio station, or a TV station to know what's going on. Communication totally sucked in this county during the emergencies, and you know it. So please, consider that. So, yes, ma'am. I want to give these guys a break. Thank you. You guys did a good job. And I know you're catching hell. But I want you guys to know, thank you.
Hi, my name is Mona Baruti, and I'm a community advocate. I'm also a substitute teacher. And I've heard a lot of really good things today. But what I'm not hearing, and I'm hearing the words liability, and you've got a big liability coming, Not everybody had insurance. Not everybody has the ability to, once their land is cleared, once the list is done, to actually move back onto that land. And when they move back onto that land, what are they moving into? Are they moving into trailers? I know that you're going to have a discussion about this, but I'm not hearing you recognize that not everybody will be able to have a home to live in once all of the permissions are done. So who's got liability for the county? That was a good question, and that's an interesting thing. I'd like to see you use your power. I know that you are under liability restrictions. Put some heat under the Federal Communications Commission to get communications to people. It's not existing. Put some heat under the insurance commissioner to get some movement. I'm hearing from the community, our insurance company isn't responding. They're taking too long. We can't get a hold of them. We have no way to get down the mountain. Use your power, use your community. Your community feels forgotten, but they want to help you help them. They don't need more clothes. They have no place to put them. They need a place to live. What are you going to do when it rains and snows? I thought maybe a solution might be the fairgrounds building. Maybe a solution might be the overbuilt jail that has a lot of room in it right now, but there's probably legal problems with that. But are you thinking about those things? We need to know what you're thinking about. It takes 7 to 9 times, statistics say, for people to get the message. There's a lot of information out there that is not being repeated enough times for it to be heard. There's a lot of misinformation out of there that is overpowering your messages. Think about it. Tell us what you're thinking about housing people who can't do it on their own. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other public comments on environmental health? I guess that was close. Okay, so let's move on, please. And we'll go to,
You're going to have board comments on that, Mr. Chairman?
oh, yeah, let's do that. I thought we did, though.
After public comment?
If you want to do that, that's fine.
Just a quick issue. Mr. Fred, regarding your question on the local fire departments, I know it is kind of confusing. Yes, your local fire departments are hazmat trained, but in a different fashion, in a different area. And you can step in any time, Jason. Fire departments are trained in hazmat spill response. What we're doing right now is hazmat identification, hazmat remediation, rendering sites safe. Fire departments, they're your first responder to a hazmat spill. Example, you have a hazardous material in a vehicle accident. You have a train accident or something. You have a diesel spill where a piece of construction equipment actually lost a drain plug to a tank. They are going to respond to that for containment and prevent anything that they can until you get the proper responding agency or company, which are commercial hazmat remediation, take care of that problem. Their responsibility is a public safety of the immediate danger. I know we have this in our fire situation. That's the difference. From what we saw and what I'm familiar with and what we saw yesterday during our filming, I don't think you're going to be able to have our fire department out there in Tyvek suits and respirators, working shovels and brooms, cleaning up, going through foundation demolition with heavy equipment operators, because you're going to take away that public safety factor that what they're hired for, and that is putting out fires and helping the public. I'm not saying that they wouldn't do that. I'm saying they're not really qualified or certified to do that. Their job is responding. And I say this only to give you an explanation of how that hazmat certification. Am I correct, Jason?
That is correct.
All right. Hopefully that we can address that issue. That's all I had, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Anybody else would like to speak there? All right. Kevin, somebody asked about ag seeds, that sort of thing. Could you please give us a little bit of information on it?
First thing I'd like to say is the ag community is a resilient community.
Kevin, can you identify yourself?
I'm Kevin Wright, the ag commissioner. First thing I'd like to say is the ag community is a resilient community. They're used to disasters, and they know the proper channels to access for help. Because of the drought, many of them have already had communication with the NRCS and Farm Services Agency. They know them by name, Amy Roca, Jeff Torres. These are familiar names to people in the ag community. And like I say, they're also used to dealing with disasters because we've been dealing with a drought for 4 years. So along those lines, we've had meetings at the library where many people were able to sign up for their programs. It was well attended. We got the word out. There were, besides the larger farmers, a lot of the smaller ones who hadn't been in communication with those agencies before were there, and I was happy to see that. So, you know, basically things are going good. It's a tremendous blow to many people. There were 30 or so larger farmers that had Williamson Act contracts in the fire. Of the 72,000 acres or so that got burned, I would say 20% of those were rangeland or scrub rangeland, had something to do with ranching. So let's say 14,000 acres. I think the loss for ranges, because there's going to be a lot of cattle that can't come back to their rangeland this year because there won't be any grass this year. So losses probably be maybe 500,000 total just for the range. There was also 4 vineyards that were affected, 2 of them substantially, 2 of them maybe more or less their irrigation. And other than that, there's many miles of fence that were burned out, and the ranchers are going to be able to get at least some kind of a cost share back on that when they apply for the aid through FSA or NRCS. So that's good there. Also, interestingly enough, when the brush burned out, the brush in a lot of this rangeland acted as fences. There may not have been fences there before, but now that the brush is gone, the cattle can get through there, so there's open areas. Longer term, you know, ranchers in the past history, including if you go all the way back to the Indians, they've always kind of used fire as a tool for range management. And farmers or ranchers are kind of used to using fire for range management. And it had been neglected for many years now for, you know, air pollution concerns and things like that that gotten away from that practice. So in a longer term, it may be that the fire will actually be beneficial if people turn around and start taking care of their land now. And putting up new fences, there may actually wind up with more range land in a couple of years from now with less weeds on them than there were. So it could be long-term benefit.
So less ladder fuels and that sort of thing, right? Is there programs through the ag that people are able to get some seed and maybe some materials for the watershed and reconstruction, that sort of thing?
Yeah, they could go to, the NRCS is good for conservation programs. It's cost share 25%, 75%, and they have to show up and go down there and explain what each situation is so that they can funnel them into the right program. Okay. There's some innovative things that they can do. There's low-cost loans that they can take out so they can get going right away. Once they make the purchases that they need to make and get the work done, they can then receive 75% of that money back, which they can pay off and only be left with a 25% to pay off at a low-interest loan. But what you got to do to get to the details of all of that is get down there to your NRCS, Amy Roca, or Jeff Dories at the FSA, and then talk to them and see what program exactly is good for you. And like I say, many people did show up at the library a couple days ago for that.
Yeah. So is that information posted on our, all of our website and Facebook and all of that?
Yeah.
All the ag possibilities?
Yeah, I think I sent it to you guys too.
Okay, thank you. All right.
But, you know, I think there's a little bit room for improvement, that some of that stuff could get lost just being posted on the county. And probably can get it out there a little bit more.
Okay.
But I think most of the players kind of know.
All right.
You, first off, thank you for getting over here so quickly. I appreciate that. And, there was a lot of questions about ag that I'm glad that you're here to help us through it. You sent out a note on a UC workshop at the San Andreas Town Hall.
On the 28th?
Yeah, can you comment
Yes.
on that a little bit?
Well, that's a very good workshop to go to. That's Scott Oneto's workshop. It's going to be all-encompassing about how to recover from a fire and conservation efforts that you can do that are available. So if you have land that you think is going to be impacted by erosion possibilities, then this is one that you really need to go to. And if you're unfamiliar with the aid that is available, it's one that you need to go to too.
Great.
Do they need to register for it ahead of time or just show
Yes.
up? They do? Okay,
You should register for that one,
okay, thank you.
just so they know how many people are showing up.
That's an all-day seminar, sir?
It goes for a pretty good part of the day. I think it's 9 to 4.
Yeah, it is.
I sent the board of supervisors that. The other thing I'd like to say is, besides these governmental agencies, that many people on their own have taken the impetus to help their neighbors. And it's just kind of the way it is, especially Calaveras Grown. They've stepped forward and done a lot of help as individuals for other people in the community. And I think they deserve a lot of kudos. Okay?
Thanks,
Thank you.
Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Kevin.
Yeah.
So you talked about losses, some millions. Well, can you restate that, please?
Okay, so as far as losses for, mostly it was range land up there.
Yeah.
And I would say of all the acreage burnt, 70,000 acres burnt, about 20% of that was probably rangeland. So it's about, what, 14,000 acres of range land. Might not be the most prime rangeland in the world. Some of it was really good rangeland. Some of it was kind of half rangeland, half kind of scrub land. So of that, so 14,000 acres, and that's land that the cattle aren't going to be able to come back to this year.
Right.
So as far as putting a value on that, just ballpark value, I'd say about $500,000.
Because of the animal value.
Yeah, the rangeland value.
So is there some,
Of gross profits lost.
Right.
and so will the ranchers be able to apply for, you know?
Yes, okay, so, yeah, there's actually, you know, the good thing about it, I can't say a good thing, but one of the things was that there weren't that large number of cattle killed. I would say less than 100 that I've heard of. Cattle perished in the fire, but there are a lot of small animals that we don't really count that much, or sheep, goats, horses. I don't really have a good figure to say on how many horses were that. I think probably sheep and goats may not have been more than 100 either. So, and it was just lucky the cattle were in higher grounds at the time.
Right.
So
So they'll be able to apply to a...
there's actually indemnity, there's one program for just things that have perished.
And who do they go for?
Farm Services Agency.
Farm, okay. And what was that guy's name again?
Jeff Torres.
Say his last name again?
Torres, T-O-R-R-E-S.
Torres, oh, Torres, okay. And where do they have offices? In
Stockton.
In Stockton. And most people, you think that Lost Cattle are already familiar with the program? You know,
Yes.
Probably not much outreach there necessary.
I would say that most of your larger farmers know. There may be a few small ones that still don't.
Okay.
But,
It's okay, we can put that information out anyhow, it'd be a really good idea.
Yeah.
excuse me?
So we can still put out the information,
Yes.
It's good.
I'll put it out.
Yeah, thanks for the clarification.
Thank you.
Can I
Anybody else? Yeah.
comment? You know, Kevin, I want to thank you. I was able to attend the session on Friday and talk to Jeff and learned a lot more. As you said, most people who are well-established and this is their livelihood are aware of these particular programs. And, you know, he typically is up here anyway on a regular basis to help people apply for the different services. And because of the Butte, he brought his entire operation up here for that day, and that was very helpful. And what he did say is he saw some new faces and new people who weren't aware of the program. So he felt that through, you know, the Farm Bureau, your office, Cattlemen's Association, Wine Grape Alliance, Calaveras Grown, and the other kind of support organizations, word was getting out. And what I didn't realize is that, you know, we do have 2 elected representatives who work for the Farm Service Agency. We have
Patty Spence.
J.W. DeLordo and
J.W.
Patty Spence, who serve on that board, and they were instrumental in getting them up here and getting the word out for that. And what he was finding is that, you know, typically you have somebody who might qualify for the rangeland type of, you know, benefit, but because of the fire, there was opportunities and funding opportunities for repair, replacement of fencing, perhaps even barns, you know, the livestock replacement and those kinds of things. So, you know, I would encourage that somehow this too gets onto our particular website information. And I know through the Farm Bureau and such, you know, there's a network there, and I know this gets communicated quite frequently through their organizations. And I understand the state agencies of the Farm Bureau and Cattlemen's are here to support these area ranchers as well. Do you find that this kind of, you know, service too is available to, say, somebody who's involved in 4-H? You know, a young person who's just kind of starting out with a project, and who knows, they become that future land baron and you know, are raising their crops and animals and such. But is there a program through 4-H, or is that through kind of the UC Extension that their kind of support services come through, or FFA kids and things like that?
Well, I think that would be more the extension than,
The FSA
yeah.
and,
But,
okay.
but as far as that goes, if you're a new farmer, that there are programs specifically to encourage young people to get into farming or stay in farming.
Right.
And low-cost loans available through those guys. And it's just somebody, if you're in agriculture, interested in agriculture, to get plugged into.
Okay, so probably more appropriate for the UC Extension and
Yeah,
their
but as far as the
programs for-
financing side of it, historically, that's what a Farm Services Agency was for.
Right, right.
I'm not familiar, Debbie, with the Farm Service Agency that much. Was that who you were talking about, that they're elected to be on the board?
Yeah, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but through the Farm Service Agency, they have representation from our county and others as well, and they're elected among their membership
Among the membership,
to
okay.
serve on this
That's what I was
board.
clarifying.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
No,
public
it's not
election,
a,
it was- yeah.
it is an election, but it's not the,
Good.
it's through their
Thank
membership.
you.
So Farm Bureau elects somebody, the cattlemen's,
Sure.
They
Elect
advise
somebody.
Jeff Torres on conditions in the county.
right.
Okay, great.
And
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions from the public to Kevin?
I will say too, though, there was a question about seeding of land, and it's through these agencies that there's opportunities for folks to reseed their properties.
Joe Kelly, I think Al brought up the seating thing. I'm not quite sure if Peter brought up airdrop seeding. Is that going to be used in this, or is this seed going to be picked up by the farmers, and then they're going to go take it out and mechanically spread the seed over their property? The other question would be, is the seed certified? No yellow star thistle. Years ago, one time I remember, and probably still have paper on it somewhere, federal government, state government were going to do us a grand deal, and they did. They started the unadopted flower of California, yellow star thistle, and they've never come, and they actually started a program to stop the yellow star thistle spread. It went well too, but I'm just wondering if these kind of things are going to be involved in this seed planting or seed spreading. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, Rosemary Wilson from McCallum Hill. I just wondered if the meeting on the 28th was going to be videotaped for people that couldn't get to the meeting, or if
Yes.
it will be? Fantastic, thank you.
All right. Any other public comments on this? All right. So,
Lunch break?
well, what do you think? You know, I'm sorry for, well, you know, then I, certainly. You know, I'm sorry this has taken so long, but we normally have to take a lunch break right about now. And I know we have a long ways to go. So
There's a CCWD meeting at 2 o'clock.
I'd like to come back at 1 o'clock. Okay?